Excellent. All right, so welcome everyone. Again, my name is Sarah Post. I'm here with Cornerstones of Science with the Library Telescope program that many of you know about. And here with Ron Thompson. He is with Cornerstones as well. He's one of our astronomy gurus who helps modify a lot of these telescopes that go out to the libraries.
Hello, everybody.
Yeah. And he's also with Southern Maine Astronomers, which is a local astronomy club. They meet in Portland. Well, they've been meeting on Zoom now, but I meet in Portland usually once a month. But actually, Ron and I have gone around the state of Maine and given trainings and gone to libraries to give the telescopes to libraries. So we're excited to see so many Maine libraries from New Hampshire and across the United States on here. So welcome everyone. Just a few housekeeping pieces. Again, if you could mute yourself, that would be great. And if you have any questions, I think that using the chat would be great. We have Betta Stoddard, who is our co-host. She works with us at Cornerstones, who's going to be monitoring the chat. And we have a question and answer time at the end. But if a burning question comes up, I think she'll be able to let us know. But we've deliberately, made this webinar for just about an hour in length. The other thing you might want to do, we're going to show some slides here. I'm going to share my screen in just a moment. We're going to have some slides, and you might want to use your side-by-side view option. And I think in my Zoom, it says view, and I can choose some options. I know some others folks, they might have like 3 dots at the top, and you can choose side by side, just because you'll see the slide, and then Ron is going to be giving a majority of the presentation today, and he's going to kind of show you a few pieces. So if the image is too small, it might just be difficult, because right now I think I've got the presenter view at the moment. So all right, so I think we'll get started, and I'm going to share my screen with our slides. All right, Ron, can you see the slides? Ron, can you see those? Okay, excellent. Wonderful. All right. So,
yes, it looks great.
Oh, good.
I am unmuted, aren't I? Yes. Okay.
Yeah, if you want to go ahead and mute, and then we'll pull you back in here in just a second. So dusting off the library telescope, we decided to call it that because we literally had to dust off some of ours as well at Cornerstones. And we thought, well, I bet some of the libraries are, just kind of getting going again and wanting to not only, dust off the telescope, but also kind of get a little refresher on how to use the telescope. Some, parts of it that may have proved a little more challenging in the past, and just want a little bit of a refresher. So again, we're here to give that to you, this refresher course, but also know we have a lot of resources and videos once this webinar is done that we can point you to either watch videos, how-to videos, or some descriptions to help you with your library telescope. All right. So you have the library telescope is an Orion Starblast 4.5-inch reflector on an altitude or alt-azimuth base. Well, that's kind of a mouthful. But this one is a really tried and true telescope, where we really thought this one, and then also working with other astronomy clubs, really felt this one is one that people can be very successful with. It's easily modified, and then once the libraries have it, it comes back. It can be checked out like a book and can come back to the library in good standing. So Cornerstones has been doing library telescopes since 2012. I know that New Hampshire Astronomical Society has been doing that even before that. And there's been very few problems that have come about with these. So, you know, it might be a battery issue, or with the Easy Finder, that seems to kind of be the most troublesome spot, but it's not such a huge deal. So, so we just wanted to remind you that this is what you have. Reflector telescopes have mirrors instead of lenses, and then your altitude is, I'll just show you here, your kind of side by side swivel, and azimuth, you know, is the up and down movement there. All right, I'm going to hand it over to Ron here, and he's going to kind of hit some highlights in this webinar as a refresher. And again, if you have questions after we go through these pieces, please be asking those in the chat, and then we can, if something comes to you, you can type it into the chat, and we'll be addressing some of these towards the end. All right, Ron, you want to take it away?
Okay. Yes. 4.5-inch reflector is a very lightweight telescope too. And of course, you've seen it carried before in videos. It's very light. I think it weighs about 15 pounds, but it's easy to carry under your arm, and you can put it in your car and strap it in your seatbelt. So what we're going to talk about today for dusting off, and I did use my feather duster and did dust off the telescope literally. We're going to talk about the red dot finder. It is a red dot finder, not a laser finder. It's an LED red dot, so you can't hurt your eyes, but still don't look at it directly, just in case. The zoom eyepiece we'll talk about and how to use it. We'll talk about a little bit on the red-white flashlight and the education pack and resource guide. And that'll be going back to Sarah, and she'll talk about that. So let's go see the red dot. Easy finder. Next slide, please. There it is. Okay. The Easy Finder is just like a sight on a rifle. The finder sits on top. You can align it in a straight line with the clamshell where it holds the optical tube, and where the opening is, you can line it up with that. That puts the angle of the eyepiece that we'll talk about in a minute in a good position for viewing. All right, the Easy Finder has the on-off switch. And if you switch it on and off, you can hear a little click. It lines up 2 white dots on the side. During the day, if you're going to do some alignment with it, you want to turn the intensity all the way up. At night, you don't have to really turn it up very much at all. Just switch it on, and when you have the minimum brightness, that should be enough so that you can put it on your target and see it very well without covering the whole target. Okay. In front of that, and basically in front of that, next to that, you have the azimuth adjustment. That adjusts left and right. On the back end, you have the altitude adjustment, and that adjusts up and down of your target. And we'll talk about adjusting in a minute. And some of you have, and some of you don't have, a battery pack on the side. One of the issues that we've had with the battery pack is corrosion. And we've had to remove some altogether and use the 2032 battery that goes up underneath here. And that pops off, and you can slide the battery in. Very easy to do. And the batteries are very inexpensive. You can buy a batch of them on Amazon for a very reasonable price. The new ones are coming out with a battery compartment on the top, which is very convenient. You just flip it up, slide the old battery out, slide the new battery in, and you're all set to go. These are adjusted when they leave, before they leave Cornerstones, if we do in fact do the modifications. If another club or another entity does the modifications, they're going to have to set these up prior to the library getting them, hopefully, and they should be aligned pretty well. We use the double-sided tape to adhere them right to the optical tube. So even if you unscrewed the thumb screws, which you shouldn't have to, the thing will stay in place because of the double-sided tape. Okay, how do you use it? Well, you turn it on, very simply, turn it on, increase the intensity until you can see a red dot in the screen. Now it's going to be reflecting on the screen. You can put your hand out there and you won't see anything. There's nothing coming out of there. It's just a simple red light emitting diode. The dot projects on a screen underneath this round hood. And you just sight it just like you would a rifle if you've ever fired a rifle. And let's say Jupiter is up there and I want to look at Jupiter. I'll put the red dot on Jupiter. And then when I look in the eyepiece, I should see Jupiter if it's adjusted properly. If it isn't adjusted properly, the best bet is to use the widest angle as possible on the eyepiece. And we'll talk about that right now. So go to the next slide, please.
Ron, can I just pause you for a minute?
Yes.
There are people in the chat who are seeing your screen, but they are not seeing Ron. So can you, I just wanted to point out, if people go to the right side of their screen where they see people who are participating in the webinar, you should be able to scroll up to the top or arrow up, and that should give you a view of Ron standing in front of his telescope.
Yeah, it should be a speaker view. You can select up at the top right-hand corner.
Should I make Ron a host? Do you think that would be helpful?
No, that you wouldn't need to do that.
Okay.
Usually the speaker would show up in the view, typically anyway. Betty, can you confirm that that is happening okay?
Yeah, somebody's saying on an iPad it's not working. Julia is saying that. We still can't see what Ron is showing. So yeah, I do think I'm wondering if there's a way for you to split the screen, Sarah, so Ron is visible.
Speaker view? Yeah, you
Or
can
maybe
split
you
the screen.
rather would have Ron showing and have him read the webinar, the presentation. He's more important in a way than what's on the screen,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. Okay. I'll stop sharing and see if that's, let's see.
I didn't think my face was that pretty.
So Ron, I can see you fully on the screen. Hopefully others
Well, you
can
got
as
me
well.
fully on the screen?
Mhm.
Okay,
Yeah, I have
All right.
speaker view on, so.
all right. And Betta, can you confirm that others are?
Yeah, please, folks, weigh in on the chat if you cannot see Ron. I'm assuming that that solved our problem.
Yeah, you can click on the bottom of the screen and see the little face down at the bottom, or whatever that thing is.
All right,
And
you're
you
good to
can-
go.
You can
You're good.
Yeah.
click on a thumbs up.
Yeah, you're good to go,
And then
Ron.
I think we're all set, Ron.
Okay, good. All right, for those of you that missed it, I'll just briefly go over this again. The Easy Finder is a light emitting diode, not a laser. The on-off switch, for those of you that have the newer version, have a green dot on it, and that's to let the patrons know that they can use that particular switch and leave the others alone because there are no green dots on them. in front of the on-off switch is the azimuth, which is the left and right adjustment. And in the back is the elevation adjustment for up and down. And when this is adjusted properly, which it should be when it leaves Cornerstones, if it's been modified there, it should be in alignment such that when you put the red dot on the celestial object, like Jupiter, for instance, when you look in the eyepiece, you should see Jupiter pretty close to the center. And I'll explain a little bit how you can adjust it to center. One of the issues we've had in the past is this battery pack getting corroded, because the batteries just don't wear out before they corrode, and people in the libraries don't even consider the corrosion aspect. And I've asked, folks to check their battery pack every once in a while. It's been a few years now, I think 3 years we're going on, where we don't include the battery pack anymore, because the battery that's underneath the old style lasts quite a while. And the new batteries are in the top. You can just flip the top, put the new battery, slide the old battery out, slide the new battery in, put the cover back on. Okay. The finder, as I said, lets you find the object in the sky, and you put the red dot on the object. Then when you look in the eyepiece, you should be able to see that object in the eyepiece. And if it's not quite in the center, then you can either tip the scope up or down in azimuth, in elevation, or rotate it in azimuth left or right. Now the eyepiece in some of your telescopes are celestron eyepieces, and they will zoom from a large field of view at 24 millimeters to a smaller field of view at 8 millimeters. Now, what that means is the smaller field of view, you're shrinking the field of view down, but you're magnifying the image. That's the magnification aspect of the zoom lens. At 24 millimeters, you're looking at a larger field of view. So the larger the number, the larger the field of view. All right, when you crank it from 24 to 8, you're diminishing that field of view, but you're magnifying the object that you're looking at. And that's how a zoom eyepiece works. Excuse me. The focuser does just that. Those of you that have the little green dots, familiar with that, again, the green dots tell the patron in the that's checking it out that this is an item that they can adjust either in or out for a clear focus of the object. And when you're using the focuser, it's a good idea to go beyond focus and then back to focus and beyond. Go beyond it either way to make sure you get a good sharp focus when you do finally settle in. So there are the eyepieces. The zoom eyepiece that Orion, that on some of the telescopes we had modified and sent out, they are from 7 to 21 millimeters. So there's a little more magnification at 7 millimeters, but a little less magnification at 21, 7 to 21 versus 8 to 24. And again, just easy to remember, the bigger the number, the greater the field of view. The smaller the number, the smaller the field of view. But that's what gives you your magnification. And in astronomy, magnification doesn't count. It's not, oh wow, how big is the image or how small is the image? It's how clear is the image. If the conditions don't warrant it to be zoomed in on all the way to 8 millimeters and it's a nice sharp focus at around 12, then you're going to use 12 for the evening and maintain that nice sharp focus because of seeing conditions. Okay, we're not using slides, so that takes care of the finder, using the finder in conjunction with the eyepiece. Of course, it helps take the cover off the telescope. And the beauty of that is it's got the little Velcro dot on it. You can put it on the base and get it out of the way. Okay, so did you have anything to add to that, Sarah?
I think the next piece might be just talking about how it's upside down and flipped, the image.
Oh, sure. That's right, because one of the slides does show that.
Yeah.
I use a stop sign as an example. When you're looking in the telescope during the day, everything is rotated, actually, 180 degrees, or upside down and flipped. So if you take the stop sign and you rotate it upside down, the letters are going to be going the wrong way and they're going to be upside down. So don't get alarmed. We had an instance when we first started modifying the telescopes. We were in the office at Cornerstones and we were looking at seagulls, and one of them took off, and instead of going up, it went down. And it was quite an experience for Cindy to see that the first time. She got, ooh, the bird went down instead of up. And again, that just shows how this telescope does work. If you are looking at an object and you move the telescope up, the image is going to go down. If you move the telescope down, the image is going to go up. It's just the opposite. And side to side is the same way. Just the nature of the beast. So don't be alarmed if you look at a stop sign and it says POTS instead of stop. And it's not in Russian, it's English, but it's upside down and flipped. Okay, enough of that nonsense.
You want to talk about how they should practice during the day, get a little practice?
Yeah, that was the next slide, wasn't it?
Mhm, mhm.
Okay. You know, right from the get-go, we have always encouraged the librarians, all of the librarians that are at the library, to check out the telescope and have a star party. If there are 5 of you, you can bring your favorite wine and cheese and crackers and have a blast with the Star Blast. And it really is worth your while to do this. Take the thing home, and during the day you can practice with it. You put the red dot on like a utility pole transformer or one of the insulators on the transformer and practice zooming in and focusing and so on. You can even use a kid's toy in the backyard. Just put the red dot on the kid's toy, center it in the eyepiece and focus it and adjust the zoom lens. It makes it easier for you to explain it to your patrons when they come to check it out, if they haven't had a presentation, in which we have done in the past, many of them. We've had patron nights, and anyway, long story short, check it out and have a blast with the Star Blast with your favorite wine and cheese. Now, that gets you used to using the controls and everything, and as well as focusing something in the eyepiece. If for some reason or other, which is the next slide, that the red dot is way off, you put it on an object, you look in the eyepiece and it isn't there. Now you got to do a little bit of a backwards operation. Find the object in the eyepiece first and center it, and then take the finder and move the red dot so that it is on the object that you've selected that's centered in the eyepiece. And you can use the azimuth knob to adjust it left or right of the object. And you can use the elevation control to bring it either up or down to the object. And once you do that, whenever you put it on an object from then on, it should be in the eyepiece. Now, if you want to fine tune this, zoom it in, go from 24 to 8 and recenter it in the eyepiece again and do some fine tuning with the knobs. The best bet is to do it at night. And to do it at night, you want to choose Polaris. Now, those of you that have had the Astronomy 101 class knows that a compass works at night, right? Compasses work at night. Oh, yeah. And you can use the compass to find north. And when you find north, you'll find the Big Dipper and you'll find the Little Dipper. The Little Dipper always dumps into the Big Dipper. So it doesn't matter where it is in its track around Polaris, which is circumpolar. They circle around themselves and they're always visible in our latitude. So focus on Polaris, which is the tip of the handle of the Little Dipper. It won't move. That being said, then you can center it in the eyepiece. Once it's centered in the eyepiece, you can zoom in and focus it sharply, and then fine tune the adjustments on the finder, the azimuth back and forth, and the elevation up and down. And that will really, really help out a lot. And that's about the best I can do to explain that. And if you have any questions or want some clarification, we can do that. What was next, Sarah? I forget.
I'll jump in, Ron. I don't see any questions in the chat, but I love that. Did you just say the Little Dipper always dumps into the Big Dipper?
Yes, the bowl of the Little Dipper is always dumping into the Big Dipper.
And are there
And if you
any
look on
other? Yeah, go ahead.
If you look on a planisphere or any sky map, if you go to skymaps.com, yeah, and any monthly sky map, if you look and turn it around so that you're looking north, you'll see where Polaris is. And the Little Dipper is always dumping into the Big Dipper, regardless of where it is in the circumpolar position at different times of the year.
So Ron, I think the next one is the education pack, which I'll show off here in just a second.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. This one's got a blue one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it opens up. This one opens up with a flap. The newer ones, the red ones, like Sarah has on hers, has 3 zippers. The front zipper is where we have the brush, which is used for cleaning the eyepiece, but unless you really have to, don't touch it. Eyepieces don't like to be scratched. But if there are some fingerprints on it, Sarah, can you show them the brush?
Yeah, so many of you may have your brush or your what we call lens pen in your pack, but we do recommend a lot of times that you keep this lens pen at the library, maybe at the desk, so that you can do the cleaning and the folks at home don't end up kind of keeping this piece because you really don't want to spend you really don't want to clean it too much. If someone cleans it too much, you can kind of scratch the lens on the eyepiece. So your lens pen when you receive the telescope might be in that little front pocket, but we do recommend you taking that out and keeping that at the library, like front desk or wherever you keep it. This is the brush part.
The little brush is for getting the big pieces out. Okay, like people have a little bit of dandruff on their eyelids, let's say. And so you don't want to blow on it because you don't want to spit on the lens either. So just kind of very gently brush it off. If making a little breeze with the brush, maybe you'll get the big pieces off just fine without having to scrape it. Then if there are fingerprints or nose prints, and yes, people do get their nose in there. If there are nose prints or fingerprints, this little cap, I'll put it up against my forehead anyway. It's just a little tiny cap that's underneath the cover. You can gently rub on where the smut is, the oils are, if you will, and gently rub it back and forth. Don't go circle. You can just.
Ron, can you turn the towards the eyepiece there at the telescope you're holding and just show real quick?
Okay.
Give it a little
Let's see if we
example.
can do this without knocking it on the floor. Okay, so the brush, just take and just brush the big pieces off. Okay, it won't scratch the eyepiece, but if there are some big pieces in there that get caught in the brush, they could scratch. So anyway, do that. And then if you have to, then just take that little cap end, okay, that little circular cap end, and gently, whoops, let me see if I can, how do we, yeah, my hand's going to be in the way, but just gently rub back and forth. Okay, if you have to, go side to side, up and down, and get the oils off. That's most important. Dust and whatever, that's not important. That won't affect too much. It's the oils that will affect the coating on the eyepiece. So it's real important to get those oils off. That's why it's important that when the telescope comes back in from being checked out, you make sure the battery still works, and you make sure that the eyepiece is clean, it's not oily. And if it is oily, then immediately take your brush, get the pieces off, and then wipe it with that little cap.
Ron, Mark Stobridge is saying blue Windex on a tissue works on sticky fingerprints.
Blue Windex. Okay, Mark, thank you.
All right, I'm going to go into the what else is in your pack here. Many of you might have the red fanny pack that is attached, and you'll have inside the instruction manual, handy dandy instruction manual that also helps make this telescope very easy to use, because it's pretty friendly in the sense, it shows some of the things we've been talking about with the stop signs showing upside down and flipped, but kind of a quick reference for the patrons using the telescope, or for you to use the telescope. Also, just to let you know, we have had this translated into Spanish. If anybody's interested, you can email me, and I think we've got about, I don't know, 30 copies in Spanish right now. Also in your pack is the National Audubon Society Pocket Guide Constellations. Excellent reference for the many constellations in the night sky. It'll help you figure out, understanding what season that you're in, so you can kind of go to the certain constellations that might be up at the time that you're looking, and
Sarah?
area. Yes.
Yeah, most all of you, I hope, do print out the monthly sky map. And the beauty of the sky map is your patrons will be able to identify those constellations that are up for that time of month and that time of year. And that's where the constellation book really comes in handy, because if they say, oh, that must be Cygnus because that looks like a cross and whatever, then you can look it up in the book. So don't forget skymaps.com and download the current month, and you can put a few of the copies on the counter at the library. And if the telescope is out, you can still give your patron a sky map and say, here, you go ahead and play with the night sky with the sky map and learn your way around. That's the best way to learn astronomy. A lot of telescopes end up being orphans in closets because they don't really use the resources available, of which Sarah's going to talk more in resources.
Yeah. What's great about this book, as well as many other constellation guides, is it talks about some of the mythologies and shapes of the constellations, where they got their names. And I know this summer happening right now, the theme is for the summer CSLP theme is Tales and Tales. And so you can definitely look up some interesting mythology and legends in here as well for different constellations.
And they're all listed alphabetically.
Mhm.
That's amazing, isn't it?
Also in your pack is the red-white flashlight or headlamp. We've made sure you've got 2 settings here. A lot of red-white lights just have one setting or one button, I should say. And so you have to go through the white light before you get to the red light, which is really what you don't want. So we've really chosen a good headlamp that you want. It can go straight to the red light, which is what you need for night viewing. If you use your white light, then it's going to disrupt your nighttime viewing for a good 15-20 minutes. So you always want to try to use your red light when you're out in viewing the night sky, and really only use your white light after you're done and you're kind of cleaning up and taking things inside. So those are the pieces that are in your education pack. It should be attached to your telescope base through the handle. Many of them have a wire tie that is kind of around. Once it's on, there's a wire tie that's keeping it on. I'd recommend if that's gone, you might want to add a new wire tie just so it doesn't really leave.
It's a tie wrap. Yeah, a tie wrap. One
wrap.
end slides through the holder end.
Yeah.
And we've been putting them on the packs just to make sure that they don't intentionally get removed unless they go through and try to unthread the belt. So makes it a little more difficult to remove with the tie wrap on it. And it has been successful. We haven't lost any.
So I'm just going to share my screen a minute just to kind of remind you of a resource that came with your telescope. Oh, I'm going to go through these again. Sorry about that. There's your education pack. But here is the cover page of the resource guide that you received, that most people received with their telescopes. It's a 3-ring binder. And a lot of what Ron and I are speaking about today are in the guide. Kind of another quick reference that stays at the library. And there's some good resources in there as well. And I'm just going to review some of those. But if you're not remembering what your 3-ring binder looked like, or you've set it somewhere, I know some folks are like, I can't remember what it looked like, or I haven't seen it in a while. Can you send it to me again? I can send it to you as a digital copy as well. So just another good resource, quick guide resource that goes into the 3 points of our training, really, the learning how to view the night sky, kind of telescope 101, and then circulation, best practices in circulation of the telescope. All right, the final piece here really is just to talk a little bit about resources. Hopefully you can see this. Some of the best resources, as you can see, is, Ron is with Southern Maine Astronomers. Go, look for your local astronomy club. Mark Stobridge is with the New Hampshire Astronomical Society. A lot of great astronomical societies all around the United States, who many of them, have some outreach, have some education pieces to their work. So it's definitely a wonderful resource. The astronomy club could definitely help with programming and with maintaining your telescope. So I would say that's one of the main resources that you should be accessing. Astronomy websites, we talked about skymaps.com, southernmaineastronomers.org. Again, that's going to be your local resource. They're going to have things on their website that is really specific to your area. So I put that one on there just to kind of focus in on kind of the local information, or the best information that might be available, especially around astronomical events that might be happening in your area. One of the good websites for young folks is spaceplace.nasa.gov. I go there quite often as an informal educator. They do a great job at explaining some harder science concepts. It's really amazing. You'll go there and like, oh, that's exactly how I wanted to say it. Or that's exactly how we should be explaining it. So Even though it is for youth and it's a great site, educational piece for youth, they just do a wonderful job at explaining some of the harder concepts that, you know, you just can't sometimes put your finger on to describe it to somebody else, right? So I definitely recommend them. For books and magazines, again, this is not anywhere near a extensive list, but R.A. Ray is a great resource. You know, so many people love the books, you know, that they put out, that so easy to understand about the night sky. Sky and Telescope magazine, wonderful resource. And one of my favorites is the 365 Starry Nights. Literally, you know, just about every single night tells you, you know, what's up that night. And so it could be a wonderful addition for folks checking out the telescope. They can see exactly what kind of a little tip, I guess you would say, that they focus on specific area that's interesting for that night. For educational materials and trainings, StarNet, they're through the Space Science Institute and Cornerstones of Science. We have some great trainings and materials as well. NASA, of course, and another one that I really like is the Astronomical Society of the Pacific. They have a lot of great resources. So I think I'm going to stop sharing so we can kind of see Ron. And our next piece really is kind of a question and answer. If folks want to ask some questions in the chat, or Betta, if you've seen some interesting questions.
Yeah, sure. We did have a question early on from Julie Hoyle. She's asking if someone would be able to arrange for someone to come to her library to do a program with them. She just purchased a library telescope and she's excited but not knowledgeable. Hopefully after today's webinar, she's a little more knowledgeable, but what about visits?
Yes, we've definitely done them in the past. I think she might, did she say which library she was from? Again,
Julie, can you add that to the chat?
Yeah, we definitely have gone to libraries around Maine and New Hampshire, or find help you find an astronomy club that could come and do programming in your area is another thing that we provide. So the reason why. Oh, okay. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that would be great. And we do like to come and kind of help new libraries that are new to the library telescope kind of get started. So yeah, we'll definitely be in touch with you.
Sarah, I'd like to make one comment before Mark leaves. I'd like everybody to know that Mark was very instrumental in getting Cornerstone's library telescope program off the ground. Back in February of 2012, he met with us at the Southern Maine Astronomers Club meeting with Cindy, the executive director, and the rest is history. And thanks to Mark and his efforts to get us off the ground. So before you leave, Mark, I had to say that.
And Sarah, you should just give a little update of how many more telescopes libraries around the country have been ordering. There's been an influx.
Yeah, so yeah, it's been an amazing ride. Cornerstone started doing the library telescope program in 2012. And to date, we've helped get over 500, close to 600 library telescopes in libraries across the United States. Recently sent 11 telescopes to the library system in Wichita, Kansas. A lot of times it's one library at a time, but sometimes this is, different library systems are interested in putting one in each of their branches. So it's pretty exciting. Just the last probably 4 or 5 months, we probably sold, 30 to 40 telescopes, which we sell between 80 to 100 a year. So this past year, it's been a little bit challenging, of course, with libraries closed, but with libraries opening up and people really wanting to get outside, astronomy, you probably know, night sky viewing has been just an incredible experience people can do outdoors with their families. So all things astronomy and night skies have been super popular more recently as something that families can do together to get
And
outside.
just as an aside, we don't modify all the telescopes. Sarah will order telescopes for a library where the local radio club, excuse me, I'm also a ham operator. The local astronomy club will go ahead and they'll get instructions. I have it's almost like a 3-page manual now, and it's really specific. It's detailed. And they do the modifications, but we from Cornerstones, we've modified probably a couple of hundred easy. I'm sure it's more than that, but we don't modify all of them, that's for sure. And I've begun a couple of workshops with people that are interested in doing modifications should I become incapable of helping Sarah. But I love doing it. And the beauty of that is, and I told Cindy right from the get-go, I'll do this for as long as I can to maintain continuity and symmetry. And, you know, if a telescope goes out, it looks like the one that we sent out years ago. There's no difference except for maybe the battery pack and where we put the decals. The rest is all the same. It's very consistent. And that's what we like.
Any other questions or anybody want to unmute themselves and ask a question? All right. So just so you know, Cornerstones has another webinar coming up. We've developed a program called Rev Up the Fun, and their activities for youth and their families. It's coming up next month if you want to register for that. Last month, we did a webinar on animal constellations that was really, really fun. We recorded that. That was also with Southern Maine astronomers. That was James Shields. And I co-presented on that with him. We focused on 10 animal constellations kind of in preparation, excuse me, for the CSLP theme of Tales and Tales. And it was so much fun talking about the different legends and myths of 10 different animal constellations that have tails. And and then he actually, the second part of the webinar, he used a program called Stellarium and gave a kind of a night sky tour. So I definitely recommend going to view that on the Cornerstones of Science website and our Cornerstones of Science YouTube channel. And many of you may not know, if you got your telescope, you know, a few years ago, and Ron and I, or Ron and Cindy came in and did a in-person training, we did develop some training videos that you may see yourself in. Actually, it was an actual telescope workshop that we videoed, and now there are 3 parts that, again, I think I mentioned earlier. One is how to view the night sky, part 2 is telescope 101, and then part 3 is the circulation process. So yeah, I would definitely recommend, you know, beyond watching this video again, definitely going to that 3-part telescope workshop videos to learn more, to again get more of a refresher as well. And we also have a couple of how-to videos, how to use binoculars and how to use a planisphere, also on our YouTube channel. So I just want to thank
There's also one on the pocket solar system. I did that with the folks in Augusta when we had a big contingency there for an annual meeting, and that was a lot of fun, and that's good with kids too. So if you can find that video, you get a little bit of astronomy 101 and the size of the area we call space, and it gives you an idea how big space really is. And the scale of the thing is 3 feet long, I think, where we have 3 to 4 feet long, where we have a piece of tape, and all the planets are listed on that. The last 4 in the last couple of inches. And the scale of this would be the nearest star to us on this scale would be 6 miles away. So it's kind of interesting. If you can find it, it should be on there somewhere.
Yeah, and I noticed one of the last resources that Mark Stobridge put on there is a kind of collaborative piece with all the different library telescope programs. So you might not know, but there are many, many library telescope programs around the United States. Again, mostly very localized, like the New Hampshire Astronomical Society or the St. Louis Astronomical Society. There's a couple in Massachusetts that are really astounding. So we kind of all came together for the librarytelescope.org website, and you can see how many different places have those telescopes. I need to refresh our list because it's been fast and furious. So if you don't see your library there, then I'll be sending them a updated list soon. But also there's a library telescope Facebook page as well for some great resources, and they're a lot of fun. They put in some fun fun comics and different things to kind of get people interested in the night sky.
Had an opportunity to work with Don and discuss on how we modified the telescopes. Gave them some insight on that.
All right. Well, if there's no other questions or comments, we appreciate your time, and please contact me, sarah.post@cornerstonesofscience.org. If you need anything, need any of the circulation forms. We didn't really go into the circulation piece, but if you need some of that information, definitely contact me. I can put you in touch with Ron if you have a burning question about the telescope or the night sky as well.
Yep, don't hesitate to ask.
All right, thanks everyone. We appreciate you. Thank you, Ron. Thank you, Betta. Thank you, Mark.
Take care, Mark.
Good to see everyone.
Okay, when